Hello and welcome to coverage of MSEM's Custom Night Magic. I'm Caillou, and today we're going to be watching the round 2 match between Chumbeque, who's on MonoRed Ponza, and BluesEclipse, who is on Blue-Red Infuse Storm, which is essentially exactly what it sounds like, a storm deck, but it also has controlling elements to it as well. So Chumbeque's opening hand is probably going to play a mountain and then Galvan Coal Line. Yep. Is going to cast Galvan Coal Line using its alt cost. Meanwhile, Blues has a reasonable hand of interaction, but I'm not sure it's interaction that's good versus Chumbeque's deck. I feel like you want more counter magic for the Ponza deck, so is probably going to run out this Magmatic Torrent for duel and then Monkey Shines in order to find some of that interaction. Could also just try to Hyper Turbo out Infuse kill right here. And yeah, this is the titular card, Infuse the Apparatus, which Blues has won a Grand Prix with before. Essentially, the play pattern of this deck is you just play a bunch of cantrips and burn spells as interaction, as well as some counter magic like this Arcane Genesis. And then you use Infuse the Apparatus on turn 3+ to just burn your opponent out of the game by copying a bunch of burn spells from your graveyard. Okay, but Chumbeque is going to play a mountain, Lotus Studies, so gets up to 3 mana. Not sure what he's going to cast with this. Oh no, Lotus Studies is different in this format. Never mind, it creates Lotus Spell tokens. I did not know that Lotus Studies was different in this format, so that's huge, yeah. That's a big ramp. This way, if Chumbeque hits a land next turn, can just run out Nade the Wavecaller, and then lock Blues out of having mana. Fortunately for Blues, now has hit 2 pieces of counter magic, so Chumbeque has to tread carefully because could just lose this investment real quick. And does top deck the land, so I think, yeah, if you're Chumbeque, you have to go for it. Is going to try for the Nade. Oh no, Regal Ignition. It's going to get countered by the Arcane Genesis. I'm surprised because I thought that Chumbeque would go for the Nade, because Nade is one-sided, acts as a win con. Instead, Chumbeque does get a land from his library, but other than that, he's kind of out of luck for that turn. If he does hit a land, another land off the top of his library, can try to do it again next turn. And unfortunately, Blues does not hit a third land, and is going to run out an Oracle's Vision, mills himself in order to better fuel Infuse the Apparatus, and draws a card. But I think doing this is a little bit risky because this puts Blues off of an Arcane Genesis. Okay, and mills Cursory Glance, Magmatic Torrent, and Infuse, which hitting an Infuse in grave is actually not super bad because you can free cast it off of Infuse as just another card, but you'd really prefer to get a density of burn spells. And draws and Unleash the Dragon. This is one of the key burn spells you want because it turns all of your other useless, or quote-unquote spells that are useless when you cast them with Infuse, into fodder for the Storm kill. And then Blues is going to Orchestrate Storm Surge and then pass. Yeah, I guess that makes sense as a use of mana. Ooh, doesn't hit the land, unfortunately. So cannot cast any of these 5-mana big boys this turn. Like, going Nade right here would have been painful for Blues. Instead, Chumbeque is forced to run out Realm Tiller and Hub of Innovation. Notably, though, next turn can use Hub of Innovation's alt ability to draw a card and still play one of his 5-mana big spells. And Chumbeque can just keep doing that with Hub of Innovation. This is a great card advantage engine versus Blues' deck and could just run out more threats than Blues has counter magic to answer. Of course, the issue is, in a little while, Blues is likely to be able to just cast an Infuse and win the game on the spot without having to dirtle around. So on upkeep is going to pay 1 for the Hub of Innovation and draws into a Meteor Harbinger and another Nade. So in this case, I feel like you would want to run out... It's actually kind of... I feel like the Meteor Harbinger might be the way to go. Yeah. It's a little controversial because if Chumbeque sacks 2 lands, only has Realm Tiller as a way to generate double red to cast future threats. But yeah, fortunately for Blues, has the second Arcane Genesis. Chumbeque once again just going to grab a Wayfarer Shrine off of the Arcane Genesis downside. Yeah, if Blues can just keep up this counter magic train, can just stall until he has enough cards engraved to Infuse. Like right now, Infuse only costs 4 mana, and this Shugenja Sanctuary means that Blues can just hardcast Infuse, but I think you want to have Distant Thunder engraved before you do that. So okay, is going to just Distant Thunder. Oh, this is actually important. Can Distant Thunder Chumbeque, and then right afterwards cast the Infuse the Apparatus, because its cost goes down to 3. So he's going to do that. And then can infuses back Storm Surge, Distant Thunder, and Unleash the Dragon. That's more than enough damage to kill Chumbeque right here. And I guess Blues is playing it out. Okay, so Chumbeque finally concedes, and we're going to a game 2. Blues' opener there was pretty subpar, but the lucky double Arcane Genesis draw off the Monkey Shines really saved Blues right there. I think in game 2, though, if Blues has a similarly counter magic, like a low counter magic hand, Chumbeque could stand a chance, especially since I think Blues is running Cursory Glance, and Cursory Glance is pretty dead versus Chumbeque's deck. Like, sure, you can counter one of the 2-mana ramp artifacts, but the real things that you want to be countering are the 5-mana Haymakers, and Blues just doesn't have the counter magic for that. Okay, going into game 2, Chumbeque on a 1-lander, so yeah, it's just going to mull that. Meanwhile, Blues does not have a counter magic in this hand, but does have turn 1 Opt into turn 2 Oracle's Vision to try and set it up, and with the backup of Shugenja Sanctuary plus Frostfire for perfect mana, and Tiernan Pyromancer as a threat, this is a pretty reasonable keep, I think. An interesting sideboard tech from Chumbeque has the Shikai's Redoubt, which, while it doesn't generate a red mana, is a land that can be used to exile cards from Blues' graveyard at instant speed in a way that isn't counterable. So very powerful against Blues' deck. Yeah, Blues looks like he's just going to be like, I don't have counter magic, but I have 3 cantrips in hand, so I'm just going to turbo out and Infuse. Unfortunately, only hits 3 lands off the Oracle's Vision, and then draws into a second Infuse off of the Oracle's Vision, so not a great cantrip for Blues. Still puts 1 card in grave. Chumbeque, like, if there ever was a time for Chumbeque to shine, it is now, because Chumbeque has 3 lands and can Lotus Studies turn 2 to go up to 5 mana. Yup. Now, the problem is Chumbeque doesn't have any of his Haymakers in hand right now. So if Chumbeque doesn't top deck them, this could give Blues a time he needs to stabilize, find counter magic, and then eventually just Infuse. Meanwhile, Blues is once again just going to run out a cantrip, Monkey Shines. And wow, what? Mill's double Arcane Genesis? That feels like a bad move to me. Like, if you Monkey Shines and you see double Arcane Genesis, like, I would keep that on top. Like, at worst, I would keep 1 Arcane Genesis on top. And then Blues is going to end not playing another land? What? Like, what is this big brain play? I guess is like thinking, oh, yeah, since I don't have interaction for a Ponza spell, I'll just play less lands and I can play them afterwards. But dog, you literally could have, I don't know. Anyways, so Chumbeque top decks the Meteor Harbinger, luckily for him, is going to go for each player sacrifices 2 lands. Chumbeque loses 2 of his mountains, and Blues loses the Shugenja Sanctuary. And fortunately for Chumbeque, this was not in a day, because if it was in a day, then Blues would have just been able to Distant Thunder this. But since Meteor Harbinger is a 4/4, it will survive 3 damage, and so Blues can just swing in with the Meteor Harbinger, present a 5-turn clock. So Blues is going to play an island and then Wheat from Chaff, and this is getting pretty close to real Infuse hours TM. Next turn can likely just if only, like, Blues really just needs some way to get a Distant Thunder into grave, and then can just is very close to just being able to kill Chumbeque off of cast Distant Thunder and then bring it back with Infuse. But Chumbeque is going to play the Shikai's Readout, cast a Hub of Innovation, and swing in for 4. I actually feel like that's a mistake because I feel like in this game you are not really planning on casting more spells, and the only way you lose really is by Blues going off with Infuse. So I feel like keeping Shikai's Readout in hand as a way to, in response to an Infuse, just exile and like you exile and unleash the dragon plus like a Storm Surge that cripples them. So I think playing the Shikai's Readout instead of just holding it in hand was a big mistake by Chumbeque. In the meantime, Blues is just gonna keep up on the 1-land cantrip train. Now has 2 lands in hand, so even if Chumbeque gets another gets to 5 mana and casts another Wildfire effect, Blues will have lands in hand to be able to cast the Infuse the Apparatus. And there's the Regal Ignition. Is still 3 mana off from it though. We'll be able to fix for red because of Realm Tiller. But for now, Chumbeque gonna swing in for another 4. Blues is dead in 3 turns. And hey, an Arcane Genesis. But no, Blues is just going to go straight for the Infuse the Apparatus. And with Distant Thunder and Grave because of the Weed from Chaff last turn, that is just game. Yup. See, I had good games to Blues, and Chumbeque almost had it, and that's in that second game. If Blues dumping both Arcane Genesises into his grave could have been a problem, but Chumbeque just, I think, misplayed by hard casting or hard playing the Shikai's Readout, and Blues held up his lands effectively. So yeah, good games to both players, but Blues on Blue-Red Infuse Storm takes it 2-0 over Chumbeque on Mono-Red Wildfire / Ponza. And until next time, this is going to be Caillou signing off. I'll see you back here for the round 3 match, which will be the finals of this Custom Night Magic. Yeah, until then, see ya.